Welcome, everyone, to the Orchestraight Mastermind series. Orchestraight is the only business development, end-to-end business development AI that uses psychology and neurolinguistic programming to help you with everything from your offer to your contracts to price negotiations to role playing. And we are thrilled to have Dean here today. So I want to take a minute to introduce Dean. I consider Dean not only a colleague, but a true friend. Dean is the founder and CEO of Growth Collaborative. And for over 2 decades, he's been helping companies of every size, from startups to Fortune 500s, unlock real growth through sales and marketing strategies that actually move the needle. But I will say this, what stands out to me about Dean the most isn't just his impressive resume, because he's built and scaled multiple businesses, led national sales teams, and partnered with leaders across industries. But what I admire the most is how he does it. Over the years, Dean has always shown me that he brings a level of clarity, humility, and real world perspective that makes his insides stick. Dean doesn't just talk about growth, he's lived it, built it, and helped others achieve it time and again. Dean, I respect you dearly. I learn from you constantly, and I know the group will too. It's an honor to share the stage with you today. So, Dean, please take it away and impart your wisdom.
Well, thanks, Jake. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the kind introduction. Before I get going, I am going to share my screen. So let's get that out of the way to make sure that everybody can see the screen. Can you see it okay, Jake?
If you didn't hear my head rattling, that was a yes.
Okay, great. Because as soon as I shared my screen, my Zoom window changed, and you know how that can be. Let me go back here. Sorry, guys. Okay, here we go. All right, let's get going. So welcome, everyone. I'm excited to be here, and I'm going to cover a lot in the next 55 minutes or so. I will leave some time at the end for Q&A, but nonetheless, we're going to jump right in. So the title of this masterclass is From Confused to Confident, Why You're Not Landing Ideal Clients and What You Should Do About It. So obviously what's on the wrapper is what's in the can. What we're going to talk about today is how to shift from this unknown expert, because I'm guessing that if you're on the call, you're an expert. I may refer to you as a fractional, a consultant, a business owner, but I'm usually going to probably use the term expert just because it's clearer. If you're an expert in your industry, which I'm assuming you are, and you're not landing clients, it's not because of your expertise, it's because of your visibility that you're struggling. So we're going to lay out a process that I teach in a group coaching program I run called the Fractional Launchpad. I'm going to lay it out. It's going to be very action-oriented. As you know, Jake knows me very well. I'm a no-fluff kind of guy. I'm going to get right to the core of the content very quickly and hopefully give you a lot of tools that you can take away and implement today. So feel free to drop any questions in the chat. And Jake, if questions come up, just interrupt me and we'll address them as we go. And
You
we'll
got
get
it, brother.
going.
No
All right,
problem.
awesome. So I speak to a lot of fractionals every year, a lot of consultants, a lot of experts, and many of them fall into either the left-hand box that you can see on the screen or the right-hand box. And honestly, what I see is that the majority fit into the left-hand box. That's 70%. What does that 70% represent? It represents 70% of the people out there doing this thing, doing the fractional, doing the consulting, running their own businesses, are just not happy with their revenue. They're not happy with their business growth goals. They're stuck and they're frustrated. And maybe 30% are happy where they're at in their business. But the truth is that the vast majority want to be further along in their business than they really are. And many of you know the fractional conference. The folks who put on the fractional conference also do a fractional survey every year. And in the 2025 survey, there was a piece of data that came out that kind of concerned me, but it also reinforces this concept that so many people are struggling. And what they said was 49% of all the fractionals they surveyed, and that was like 250 or 60 people they surveyed, 49% are earning less than $100,000 a year in their business. That kind of shocked me, and it kind of made me a little sad, honestly. You've got some amazing experts out there, and many of them are barely scratching the surface, and they're definitely not earning what they did in corporate, which is why we're starting to see a little bit of a trend of people shifting back to the corporate environment. And honestly, it's a shame because this fractional model, being an expert, a consultant, an advisor, brings so much value to the clients that you work with. But what I realized was there were some trends, there's some reasons why some are successful and some are not. And I think it boils down to one key thing. The key thing is that the successful experts out there follow a proven process to grow their business, right? They have clarity around their business and they know exactly what to do to grow their revenue and add clients. And the rest, they just try and random stuff, random acts of marketing, random acts of business development, random acts of networking. And of course, that doesn't work. So I want to lay out for you the process I teach in the Fractional Launchpad, and you can take this stuff and implement things today in your business to hopefully move you forward. But before we do that, I want to touch on what I call the expert myth. And this, again, gets reinforced every time I talk to folks in the marketplace. And the expert myth is this. If I'm good at what I do, if I'm an expert at what I do, surely the clients will just find me, right? Well, unfortunately, folks, that is not the case. That doesn't happen. Fractionals, consultants, advisors of all types, there's amazing talent out there, and so many of them are struggling because clients don't just find them. So we're gonna cover that today. How to transition from being an unknown expert to a visible authority in your space. So clients can line up to work with you, right? They can find you quickly. They know exactly what you stand for and why they should hire you over the next person that they may be talking to. Jake already covered a little bit about my background, but for those that don't know, for those of you that don't know me, Dean Isaacs, I'm the founder of the Fractional Launchpad and a number of other businesses. I'm from England originally. That picture in the middle is way back. That's a shot from college way back 30 plus years ago. That's my wife. We've been married now for 30 years. So that's a little about me. But in terms of my business, I've been doing B2B consulting 20 years. I've been a fractional 14 times over the last 10 or 12 years as well. And I've learned a lot, and I teach what I've learned. And what I teach are the actual things that I do in my business and my members do to grow their business. As I mentioned, I'm the founder of the Fractional Launchpad, and I've worked with hundreds of fractionals, coaches, business consultants, and experts over in my time. And really, this little number here, I say a little number, this last bullet point here is not really on the screen as a humble brag. It's just to show that there's revenue opportunity out there for you experts, okay? You don't have to go back to corporate. If you can figure out a way to build your business consistently, you can generate a lot of income for yourself and support the clients along the way. So let's jump right in. So again, as I said, we're going to shift you from unknown expert to visible authority. That's our goal today. So what exactly is a visible authority? It's once you've achieved that status, you're clearly positioned and known as the go-to expert for solving problems in your clients' businesses. You're known for solving specific problems for a specific audience. Too many people I talk to are perceived as generalists. Even if you say, I'm a fractional CMO for manufacturers, that's too general. You sound and really look in from an online perspective like everybody else. We're going to move you past that so that you stand out and clients are attracted to you. And when you do that, honestly, you shorten the sales cycle, you actually command higher fees, and clients, they want to work with you longer. So we want to get you to that point. So I like to use frameworks and formulas when I teach. So we're going to show you a formula here that will help lead you down that path to becoming a visible authority. So visible authority is our goal. And the two elements of the formula are client clarity and strategic visibility. Now, these are both elements I teach in the Launchpad, but I'm going to share a lot of the secrets with you today. And we're going to start with client clarity. So client clarity is really more than just figuring out your elevator pitch. When I ask people, who are the ideal clients you work with? I get these sort of generic one-liners, I work with manufacturers in Wisconsin. That's not enough. It's not enough information to really elevate you, right? Elevate you and help you stand out in the market. So I'm going to share the whole framework right here, and we're going to dig into two or three key pieces today. So as you can see, there are 5 elements to the whole client clarity framework, but we're going to dig into zone of genius, ideal client profile, and messaging pillars, because I think if you get those things right, you're going to be light years ahead of where you were before. So we'll jump in and start with zone of genius. So when you started your business, you were probably told that you need to identify your ideal client, and identify the problems that they have and then come up with solutions to solve those problems. Well, that approach works if you're developing a product, right? But at the end of the day, we're not selling a product. We're selling ourselves. We're selling our expertise. We're selling our wisdom. We're selling our knowledge. And ultimately, we're selling relationships as well. So my belief is you need to flip that and start out with understanding you first. Build the business that you want. Build the business around the things that you like to do and the kind of clients you want to work with. And that's what the zone of genius is all about. So the first element, and again, I'm going to move quickly. So take notes. We're going to share the recording as well after this. So the three elements of the zone of genius. The first is passion and fulfillment. What kind of work do you love to do? What kind of work, when you really get into it, do you kind of lose track of time? What kind of work or what kind of problems do you like to solve? Right? So think about those things. If I said to you, I don't know, maybe you're a CFO, but you really hate accounting and numbers. Are you going to be happy and successful in that business? Obviously not, right? So it starts with the things that you love to do. The next part is, what are you good at doing? Where does your expertise land? Because you might love something, but let's say you might have expertise in something, but you don't like doing it. You're not going to be successful. So you have to have both of these. So what areas of business, what skills, what results do you drive? So what have your clients praised you for in the past? If you're new into entrepreneurship and you've recently come out of corporate, what did your past bosses say you were really good at? What kind of results did you drive for your clients? Okay, think about those things. What are the outcomes that you've delivered? Spend some time documenting these things. I mean, I would even say if you've got client testimonials or client references or prior job reviews, go through that stuff. One thing you can do is drop it into your favorite AI, Orchestraight or any other AI, and have it analyze that information, help it draw those things out for you. It can be really helpful for you to start positioning yourself a little differently. And the third piece, I think, is hugely important in terms of credibility building, is your unique approach. My guess is that you have systems, processes, tools, templates, spreadsheets, documents that you use to execute on the work that you do really well. Now, it's one thing to say to a prospect, I'm good at X and I have a process that I follow, and trust me, it's going to be great. There's a whole another thing to say, I have a proven process called the Client Clarity Framework to help you work through the journey of getting from point A to point B. When you give it an identity, when you give it a name, when you give it some substance, it feels real. And it's what I call a proven process, right? So go back through how you do what you do and document that. You don't have to write a full standard operating procedure. Just capture the main phases of the process, capture those highlights, and then give it a name, give it an identity. And it can be part of your brand and part of your offer. And we'll get into how you use this information here in a minute. But developing your zone of genius, spending time thinking about that will change completely how you think about who your ideal clients are and the kind of work you want to do. Because it makes no sense to me that if you're going to build a business around you, that you always having to do work you don't like to do, stuff that drains your energy. If you wake up on a Monday morning like, oh man, I have to do this work, you're in the wrong business. So build the business around you first. And I think that's one of the things that most people make a mistake when they start their business. So I want to give you an example of what this looks like once you've gone through this exercise. I'm going to share my zone of genius specifically for the fractional launchpad. I have two sides to my business. I still do business consulting and I'm a fractional chief revenue officer, but I also lead the fractional launchpad, which is a group coaching program for fractionals and consultants. So I wanted to share my zone of genius so you can kind of get a sense of the output side of this so you can work towards that. So the first, as I said, is passion and fulfillment. So this is my little blurb that I created based on this exercise. I'm helping fractional executives and consultants grow thriving, sustainable businesses faster without constant trial and error and burnout. That's what gets me up in the morning. That's what gets me excited. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing today. That's really my passion and what I feel fulfilled. The second part is my expertise and the results of being able to drive. Expertise comes from the longevity in the business, 20 years doing consulting, 14-time fractional. And so I teach what's worked for me and what's working for my members right now to help them land those high ticket, high value clients and really get paid what they're worth in the business. And then the final component is proven frameworks and approaches. As I mentioned earlier, I'm kind of a practical, no hype approach to working with my clients and members. And, I'm all about relationships and conversations. So all the frameworks are built around that. And I have a number of frameworks I built in the program. And so I can talk about these to my prospects and to my clients, and it just builds some credibility into the story. Okay, so I'm going to pause for a second. Use this framework to help you develop your zone of genius. It's the first step, and as I said, in the client clarity framework. Okay, I'm going to keep moving because we've got a lot more to cover. So ideal client profile. This is one of those things that we all told we need to do it, but I often see it done poorly. And what I usually see when I ask a person, tell me about who your ideal client is, I get this kind of response. I'm a fractional CRO that works with tech startups, helping them grow their revenue. Yeah, it's not great. That's kind of an average-ish elevator pitch. That is not an ideal client profile. Okay, that at best kind of gives somebody directionally a sense of what you do, but it's really not going to work. It's not going to help you grow. That's where the 70% that are struggling stop when they think about their ideal client profile. I'll tell you guys, that is not going to get you into the top 30% of earners. So let's talk about the process you need to go through to really understand and develop your ideal client profile, and then what you can do with it to build authority in your marketplace. So we'll start with target audience. So target audience is usually, I'm going to bring up a couple of bullet points here real quick. Target audience is usually where people begin and end this process. They talk about the kind of company they want to work with, maybe their size based on revenue or employees. Maybe they talk about they're in growth phase or something like that, but generally not. They generally don't get that far. So we need to take it way beyond this. So as you can see in my example here, and again, I'm basing this off of this week this week elevator pitch I showed you. So start with target audience. So I don't know how many people on the call today work with startups, but I'm going to challenge you. If you work with startups, don't say you work with startups. And the reason is it's too vague. Too vague. So let's give you two examples of a startup. It could be two guys in a garage just getting going. Or it could be 200 people in a Series C funded company on a hyper growth. They're both startups. They have very different challenges, very different buyers, and definitely very different budgets and needs. So don't just say startup. Describe the type of stage the business is in, because it helps me. If I'm your referral partner, someone in your network, then I'm really clear about the kind of business you work with. And in my example on the screen, seed to Series C, scaling their go-to-market strategy. Far better than I work with tech startups and help them grow their revenue. Make sense? So we're going to keep moving. Buyer persona is the next step in the process. So buyer persona is all about the individuals that you're marketing to, because believe it or not, businesses don't buy your services, people do. We don't market to businesses, we market to people. We have to understand those people, how to speak to them so a message resonates. So decision makers, obviously we need to understand that role. Is it the CEO, the founder, head of sales, head of marketing, head of HR? Who are you selling to? That's important. Second part is the demographics. Generationally, people think and buy differently. We've still got a lot of boomers in the marketplace. We've got Gen X's, we've got millennials, we've got other generations coming behind. Define the demographics of the people. Are they heavily female-led organizations, male-led organizations? Do you care about that? It's something to consider. Okay. So in this case, I put in there typically late 30s to 50s, often technical founders building leadership teams. Keep in mind, they're a scaling organization. And then the psychographics component is also very, very important. And psychographics is all about how people think. And this is one of the areas of Jake's expertise too. So leverage Jake, leverage Orchestraight for figuring some of this stuff out. But psychographics are the values and thought processes and opinions around the kind of people that we're selling and marketing to. So, and again, in my example here, we're looking at ambitious, investor-driven, right? We know that because we just said the organizations are seed to Series C. but they are open to new systems, but are under pressure to scale fast. Do we care about that? Yeah, absolutely. It really makes a difference because let's say you are a process person, methodical, you're kind of a thinker. Do you fit well with working with high speed, high energy individuals? They may not be a good fit. So keep that in mind because it will make a huge difference. So I'm going to pause for a second. I see in the questions, and I'll ask the question, hey, Dean, you mentioned not being a generalist. How deep or finite do you need to be? If you are really specific, do you need to limit your audience? How do you find the balance? Great question. Well, we're obviously working through this right now, but here's the thing. Being specific and focusing on a target audience actually opens up more opportunity than being a generalist. Okay. If I needed heart surgery, am I going to go to any random doctor? No, I'm going to go to a specialist, a heart surgeon. That's what your clients think about. If you work specifically in manufacturing, I don't know, process implementation and optimization, I'm not just going to find an average COO that does process stuff. I want somebody that understands, let's say, Six Sigma. So it's okay to be specific. It's okay to be targeted and niche down some. Now, if you only work with purple unicorns, maybe that's a little narrow niche. You can expand it a little bit. But if you don't stand for something specific, the specific problems you can solve for a specific audience, you don't stand for anything. So you have to find the balance. I would say I would rather you start narrow and expand out a little bit than be too broad and too much of a generalist because nobody knows what you stand for. Okay, let's keep moving. So challenges. So I'm going to bring up challenges and I'm going to bring up impacts because people don't hire us to overcome a challenge. People hire us for the outcomes. They hire us for the outcomes, the impact. Usually business owners, they've got lots of things going on, right? There's lots of issues in their organizations. But until the impacts of those issues and challenges get to the point where they can't sustain, they're going to deal with them. So we have to not only identify the challenges, we have to identify the impacts of those challenges. So I'll give you, as you can see on the screen, in this particular case, again, the challenge is the need to build repeatable, scalable sales and marketing processes because they have an over-reliance on founder-led selling, okay? And they struggle to align marketing and sales execution. That's the kind of problem that this person solves. So if I'm a founder, I'm still the lead revenue generator, I will resonate with this. It will make sense to me versus we help you generate more revenue. Blah, doesn't stick. So the impacts and the desired outcome. So the impact of the impact of having this challenge is professionally, growth targets are missed, which is frustrating the investors. And personally to the founder feels overwhelmed trying to manage everything. What way to connect with your audience and speak to their personal impacts, what's happening in the business? You'll attract people. They'll be like, all right, this person gets me. This person knows me. So understand the impacts of the current challenges is really, really important. And then, of course, we have to fast forward, right? Put them in the time machine and look at the desired outcomes for future. Once we solve the problems, what does their business look like? Because that's what they want. So we have to, in this particular case, again, predictable, scalable client acquisition and reduced dependence on founder-led sales. Pretty simple. These are all the elements of your ideal client profile. Pretty specific, right? But it's going to attract a very particular audience, the audience that wants to work with you. Okay, let's keep moving. So what do you do with all that stuff? You've gone through your zone of genius exercises. You've gone through your ICP exercises. Now you've got information. What are you going to do with it? I believe that it needs to be developed and refined. And ultimately, it has to lead you to developing your messaging pillars. And messaging pillars are something that marketers talk about internally, but it's not spoken about much out in the world, if you will. The messaging pillars are simply your core themes that you talk about in your content over and over again. It's the core things that you're known for, right? Helps you position yourself as an authority in that space. So let me give you an example. I've got a couple of examples I'm going to share. The first is Simon Sinek. I'm sure everybody's heard of Simon Sinek. What is he known for? what are his, now you know the term, what are his messaging pillars? If you thought Simon Sinek, what do you think of? Drop it in the chat if you want. But it's usually start with why, right? Start with why. That's what he's known for. He actually has 3 core messaging pillars. He has a few more, but the 3 core ones are start with why, which is all about the importance of purpose-driven leadership, right? We know that. The second is leaders eat last, which is about building trust and creating safe environments for teams. And the third is infinite mindset, which is focusing on the long-term impacts versus short-term wins. If you go back and look at his content, you'll see these themes coming up over and over again. He speaks about them differently. He uses video and written, all the different formats of content, but people know him for those things. What do people know you for? What do you want to be known for? That's what your messaging pillars are all about. So I just want to drive this point home by showing you my messaging pillars, just so you can kind of get a sense of, again, where we're headed with all this. And these are somewhat abbreviated just for today, but you'll get a sense of it. So for the fractional launchpad, for me, my 5 messaging pillars, helping take people from unknown experts to visible authority, building predictable pipelines of ideal clients, conversation-based sales approaches that convert, adopting value-based pricing with confidence, and finally, drive results by leading successful engagement. Those are my 5 messaging pillars. So if you follow me online and you see my stuff, you'll be able to pick out what this content relates to, which messaging pillar. So go back through this process. Go back to your zone of genius work. Go back to your ICP work. Go back to the things that really drive you and have an impact on the ideal clients you want to work with, and develop your messaging pillars. Put all of the stuff I'm explaining into Orchestraight, put it all into one of your favorite AIs, and let it help you brainstorm this. But these messaging pillars are the core of your content. You should never, ever sit at your screen and say, what the heck am I going to write some content about today? What the heck am I going to do a video on today? Your messaging pillars will drive that. And you can create lots of different types of content. Okay, so I'm going to pause for a second here and see if there are any questions. If there are, please drop them in the chat. I know I'm moving quickly, but I want to make sure that we give people time to answer questions. If not, we're going to move to the second half of this equation that I already showed you, this formula I showed you. So no questions.
No questions open right now, Dean.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Jake. So we'll just keep moving. So the first half was client clarity. The second part of this equation, this formula, is what I call strategic visibility. So strategic visibility, it looks like Cynthia said chat is disabled. Thanks, Cynthia. So strategic visibility is, you've gone through all this work, right? You've developed all the things I've talked about. The last thing I want you to do is let it create or gather virtual dust on your hard drive. You need to put this information out into the world. You need to be visible to your target audience. Well, how the heck are you going to do that? Let me share with you the framework. Now, I'm not talking about, working on SEO on your website or anything like that. Well, that is important. That's down the road, right? We're not worried about that. We're talking about being known. Jake says, please put the questions in the Q&A chat and we'll make sure we catch them. Thanks for that, Jake. We're talking about being known by your ideal clients for solving particular problems. That's what this is about. That's why the 70% struggle, because they're perceived as generalist or generally just unknown. So let's look at the framework for creating strategic visibility. There are 5 elements. You kind of get my style by now, right, guys? There are 5 elements to the framework, but we're going to talk about the 2 on the left: endorsed authority and content that converts, because I think these are the fastest path to momentum in your business. Okay, so let's jump into endorsed authority. So what is endorsed authority all about? Endorsed authority is about being seen by your ICP in channels and forums and places they already trust and respect. You may have heard the concept of transfer of trust when it comes to referrals, right? If I'm working with a client, they trust me, and I refer Jake into an opportunity, that trust in me is transferred to him because it's through a trusted person. So this concept of transfer of trust is an innate part of endorsed authority, okay? So I'm going to give you 3 or 4 things that you can Put in your roadmap for the next 90 days and try and execute to build your authority, be more visible to your target audience. Because that, again, it's what it's all about, folks. So being seen in places your ICP trust. That's the definition of endorsed authority. So the first is trade associations. Now you may say, dude, that's like a pre-COVID strategy. I'm telling you, because it works today. It still works today. Some of your biggest competitors are very visible online, and they've abandoned in-person regional groups because they've got more reach online. I get it. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity. So I'm going to give you 2 examples of how to leverage trade associations to build endorsed authority. And quite honestly, trade associations and professional groups, there are rooms full of your potential ICPs. Why would we not want to try and leverage those? So I'll give you 2 examples of how I've used it and how one of my members have used it. So I lived in San Diego a number of years ago, and I was doing a lot of work with general contractors, large general contractors, hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, the big guys, hard to get to. So I joined the Associated General Contractors. It's an association for GCs. But I was a lowly, associate member or affiliate member, whatever they called me at that time. I wasn't a contractor, right? I was just a support member. So I joined, and that gave me access. It gave me access to some of the networking events they held. It gave me access to some of the online training and forums they ran. And it gave me access to the staff of the organization. So I jumped right in. I became a member. I went to all the events. I showed up everywhere I could. Didn't pitch or sell anyone. Just showed up, observed, added value where I could, built relationships. And most importantly, I built relationships with the organization's staff. And those relationships led me to the opportunity to join the membership committee. And as soon as I joined the membership committee, I got visibility. Not only did I get visibility, I got to meet every new potential general contractor member coming through the door. I got to interview them, talk with them, get to know them, talk about the organization on behalf of the organization, access to my ICP. And that went really well. And through all of that activity, I actually built a relationship with the programs director. And after about 6 months, none of these things I'm teaching are quick hit shortcuts, right? They're all intentional strategic approaches. So after about 6 months, the programs director came to me and said, look, we're putting together the education calendar for next year. Do you want to put together a program and some workshops on business development for general contractors? I'm like, heck yeah, I do. And that's what happened. So as the new calendar launched, I ran these programs, and I was introduced by the association as the expert on business development for the construction industry. Talk about an endorsement. Didn't ask for it. That's how they presented me. And so I ran the classes. It all went well. And guess what happened? The phone started to ring more and more and more. All these people were coming to me looking for my help to help them grow their businesses. Through this natural endorsement of authority and the platform I built through the trade association. So don't think trade associations are old. Don't think of them as stale. They still work. Okay, so I'm going to keep moving because, again, we've got more to cover. And let me pause just for a second. Trade associations, take a step back from that. It can be any type of industry organization, industry group, peer groups, anywhere where your potential ICPs are hanging out and where they trust the organization. They trust the people in the organization. Be creative. Be creative. Think about your ideal client, the industry they're in, the geography they're in, and where they go to meet other people in their community, in their industry. Okay, bullet point 2, speaking at industry events, on podcasts, or on webinars. Now, I'm sure you've seen the trends of starting your own podcast or being a guest on a podcast, doing, speaking at industry events, doing webinars, all of those things. Obviously, those are all really good opportunities to demonstrate your expertise in front of your target audience. But I want to give you an idea today of something you can flip around a little bit and have a little more control. So what if, for example, let's take the webinar, for example. What if you created a roundtable or a panel discussion focused on your target audience, and you invited the top 3 or 4 well-known experts that serve that target audience? They don't do what you do, but they serve the same target audience. What if you invited them to come and sit on this panel and share their wisdom, share their expertise. Generally speaking, people love that stuff. I don't care how busy you are. I don't care how big you think your audience is. People like to participate. They want to be invited to share their wisdom, tell their story. So now you've got 3 or 4 experts that serve your target industry with probably a much larger reach and client base than you have, all sitting together on a panel where you're the host. Elevates your status, right? And it gives you access to the lists. Now, would any of those individuals refer you one-off opportunities? Perhaps, when they come around. But we all know that referrals are sporadic. We have no control over when referrals come in. So instead, we go through this process, and part of the deal is that they get to participate in the panel if they just invite their list to attend, their clients, their prospects, their network, the people they know and that trust them. And so by extension, you're being connected to all those people. You may build your own list by 200-300 connections of ICPs by going through this process. And then you sit on the virtual stage with them, and that transfer of trust, that endorsed authority kicks in again. So now you have access to these people, this list that you may not ever get access to one-on-one. So think about how you can leverage others in your industry, get on stages, present, be the center of the party, if you will. Don't wait for the invite. Now, not all of you want to do public speaking. Totally get that. So I've got another opportunity for you to do similar things, but maybe in a written format. Okay. Write for newsletters, blogs, associations put out newsletters every week and every month. Many times they're looking for content. Lots of publications that are looking for good content all the time. LinkedIn, you can get known as a content creator for particular industries, niches. But think about, where is your audience consuming trusted content, and how can you be part of that? How can you be part of that? So again, lots of opportunities for you to think about leveraging this concept of endorsed authority. Endorsed authority is simply this: you're leveraging somebody else's trust to extend it to you. It will accelerate your opportunity to be seen as an expert in your industry. Okay, let's keep moving. So again, we're talking about becoming a visible authority in your space. So the second part of this we're going to touch on today is this concept of content that converts. Of course, we all know we need to create content, and that can be in any number of forms: video, written, audio, blog post, emails, the list goes on and on and on. But here's the problem. 90% of the content I see is purely educational. And educational is interesting, but it doesn't convert to conversations. People just consume that. And they say, okay, I'm going to try and implement that myself, or that was interesting, but they don't start conversations. There are different types of content that you should create that will actually help you start conversations. So that's what I'm talking about when I say content that converts. I'm talking about converting into a paying client tomorrow. I'm talking about content that converts a viewer, a reader, a consumer of your stuff into a conversation. Okay, into a conversation. Remember at the beginning I said we're in a business of relationships. People buy us and from us because of relationships we build. All relationships begin with a conversation. So that's the goal of content. Create content that creates opportunity for conversation. So let me break down some simple ways for you to think about creating content that can start those conversations. And again, I use this strategy in my LinkedIn DMs, and I start conversations almost every single day. 50% of everybody I connect to on LinkedIn responds with a message back immediately. Think about that. Half of everybody I connect with starts a conversation with me because of the messaging I use. And out of those that don't, 50% respond to my second message. It just starts conversation. So that's the focus, you guys, starting conversation. And let me give you a sense of approaches you can use as you rethink your content. Remember, we're going to back up. We're going to look at our content pillars. That's what we're going to talk about. How you deliver it in your content really makes a difference. Okay, so be a contrarian. I'm sure in just about every industry, there are things that we just do this way in this industry, right? The dogma, the standards. Find a way to push back. Find a way to flip those things around. Is there something you can talk about that changes how people perceive this, the way we do it in our industry approach. Most industries have areas that are a little stale. Most industries have opportunities for upgrading how they do what they do around your expertise. So one of my examples, one of the things I often say is never send a proposal to a prospect who asks for one. You're like, hang on a minute, dude. How do you close deals if you don't send proposals? There's a time and a place. But one of the things I talk about in the contrarian fashion is never send proposals. Now, that fits into my fractional sales framework, when to present proposals, but you don't just send them. So it creates curiosity. People lean in when I say never send a proposal. They want to know, what the heck is he talking about and how do I close deals? So what can you be a contrarian about in your industry? How can you create thought and curiosity with your content? So that's one way to do it. Second is sharing vulnerable behind the scenes stories. Stories engage, we know that. That's a really important part of all content, is telling stories, sharing examples, letting people in. Showing your vulnerability is really important. So vulnerable stories can be how the $50,000 engagement that went sideways and what I had to do about it. I'm just making titles up here, obviously. Or how my client increased their profitability by 18% in 6 months without firing anyone. What are the behind the scenes things you can share? If you're an expert, you've seen a lot, you've done a lot. How can you share those behind the scenes? Owners and executives, the people that hire us, they don't know it all, right? A lot of them are younger and earlier in their business career. So those behind the scenes stories create curiosity and often cause them to reach out to learn more. Okay. And then state of the industry reports. This is what may feel like a random suggestion, but it can be very, very powerful. So I mentioned FRAC earlier on, the folks that put on the conference and they do the annual survey. That survey is amazing if you haven't seen it. And I go to it for data. I go to it for statistics. They've done a really good job with it. So when I think state of the industry reports for fractionals, think of FRAC. What if you had that same mind share for your industry with your target audience? Okay. Now, here's how to go about this. You don't have to create all the content yourself. You don't have to do months of research and analytics and all this stuff. No. Simply source information from other credible sources, like Forbes, for example, or whatever sources make sense for your industry associations, other big surveys that get done in your space. Source that information, put it together in a unique format, cite those sources, credit those sources. It's really important for two reasons. First of all, it's not your stuff. You've got to credit them. But secondly, when somebody sees that this particular piece of your report is sourced from Forbes and they trust Forbes, by extension, again, credibility transfers to you. So maybe there's a way to put a state of the industry report together, for example, that shares some unique insights and perspective about what's going on and focus it on, obviously, your ICP and angle it on the areas of business that you're an expert in. Now you've got an amazing document. You can share it with your prospects. You can share it with your referral partners. You can share it, obviously, online. You can have your network reshare it. And if you've built relationships with trade associations in that same industry, perhaps they would share it. Perhaps they would even endorse it. So these are different types of content that convert into conversations. It's more than just educational content, guys. We've got to move away from all of this educational content. There's a time and a place for it. It's usually 50% of your content you produce, but the rest has to be content that converts into conversations. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. So I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to stop sharing screen here in a minute, and we'll open up for questions and chat with Jake at the end here. So the journey from unknown expert to visible authority. We've talked a lot about this today. Starts with going through the client clarity framework. Then you move on to your strategic visibility. What are you going to do with the content you produce? How do you want to be known and seen? And once you achieve that visible authority status, I've got to tell you guys, it changes your business overnight. It really does. People start to come to you. They look at you as the go-to expert for solving the problem that you're known for solving. It shortens your sales cycles. It actually allows you to charge premium fees without much pushback. That's the goal. That's where we want to be, right? That's where we want to be as experts in our business. But just going through this process and executing will change how you think about your business, change how you show up. So a lot to cover. I know we covered a lot. I know Jake's going to share this video, and I'm gonna follow up with the webinar with an email to everybody that attended today with a worksheet. And it's a worksheet to help you work through your client clarity framework. It's a worksheet. There's some AI prompts in there. You can put it into Orchestraight and have Orchestraight help you with it, or you can dump it into any other AI and have it help you. But I'm going to share a worksheet with everybody that you can use to really kind of put this thing in motion, get it going. So last thing here is Q&A. I'll bring my contact info up on the screen, and I'll share this in the chat here in a second too. But if you have questions about what I've covered today, hit me up. I'm happy to chat. If you're interested in the Fractional Launchpad, the accelerator program, jump on my calendar. I'm booked out through the rest of the month pretty much with folks interested, but jump on my calendar as soon as you can. I'm happy to chat, see if it's a fit. If not, maybe I can give you some direction and advice. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing screen and we can go into chat, into Q&A, I should say. Okay.
So,
all right.
First of all, thank you. At the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll see a little icon that says Q&A, and there's a little thought bubble with a question mark in it. Go ahead and click on that and enter any questions you may have in there, and we'll make sure Dean gives his sage advice regarding your question. In the meantime, Dean, I'll ask a question while people are conjuring their own. So we talked about being very specific with our ICP, and that there's really not a huge drawback to getting too specific. So how do we know when that ICP has been finalized, or is it something that's constantly evolving?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, finalized is a tough one, right? It's never really done. I think that you should be 85% comfortable with it and move forward. The other 15% is where it evolves as the market changes, as your desire to do the kind of work changes, as you get busier, whatever it may be, it's going to evolve. So I recommend you going back and look at your ICP quarterly, go through the exercise again, refine again, see where the market demands have shifted, and make some adjustments. But if you're 80%, 85% there, and you're starting to feel like the market is reacting to it and responding to it well, you're on a good path.
Great, please. So a question did come into the chat, Dean. How do we determine who our best referral partners are, and how best can we equip them to refer us?
Yeah, great question, Corey. So there's a few things to this. I didn't get into your elevator pitch today or your, positioning statements, all that stuff. But here's the thing: the clearer you are about your ideal client and all the things I talked about today, the clearer you can be communicating that to your referral partners. And the clearer they are, the more likely they are to refer you the right kinds of opportunities. But one of the things I suggest, and if you've been on my other content before, you'll see this, is in addition to developing an ideal client profile, develop an ideal referral partner profile. It's a simpler one, simpler profile. And in essence, there are three pieces to it. The first is, do you have aligned industry focus? Are you working with the same kinds of businesses? Jake, if you only worked with, let's say, banks, and I only worked with manufacturers, we may really like each other and hang out, but I'm probably not going to be able to refer you much because we don't work with the same businesses. So is there alignment around ICP? That's one. Second is there alignment around like the kinds of individuals we connect with within the organization? If I'm talking to the CEO and this referral partner is selling payroll services and working with the accounting team, there's no alignment there. And then the third is just generally, is there a similar sphere of influence? Are we hanging out in similar groups, doing similar things? So develop your ideal client profile, then develop your referral partner profile. Then you have a lens to sort of like measure these individuals by, and then you can share a much clearer story.
Excellent. Dean, thank you for that. The second question is, can you share your thoughts on content or strategies for LinkedIn specifically?
Yeah. So LinkedIn, you need to post 10 times a day and never get off of LinkedIn. Just kidding. Just kidding. That's my sarcasm coming through. Sorry, guys. So content strategy. So if you follow the process and you've developed your messaging pillars, your content revolves around these messaging pillars. Okay. In terms of type of content and frequency, I mean, LinkedIn changes their algorithm all the time. You know, they really like video content. They still do like video content. They really like the newsletter feature. I'm not talking about posting articles. I'm talking about creating a newsletter that you post articles regularly through the newsletter feature, because it will actually display that content to people that like that topic, so you can build your reach. But it also pushes that newsletter into people's email inbox off of LinkedIn. So that's a great strategy to use for content distribution on LinkedIn. But again, it's really all about using your messaging pillars and sharing that wisdom in a way that converts into conversations. And you know what? 2 or 3 posts a week is plenty, maybe 2 at most. But you can also engage, right? You can reshare your referral partners' content, right? Comment there, you get visibility there. There's a lot of other strategies, but I think it goes back to that core messaging and being visible. One other quick comment on this: if your prospects aren't on LinkedIn, don't spend a lot of time there. I think you need to be there so your referral partners, you stay top of mind with them because they're on LinkedIn. But if your ideal clients are somewhere else, that's where you need to be. So the whole endorsed authority approach we talked about earlier.
Fantastic. And then, Dean, we have one more, and we'll call this the last one for the day.
Okay.
So once the ICP is defined, any suggestions to reach them directly in addition to trade associations, etc.?
Yeah, so I'll give you a couple of ideas on that. Again, we're in the relationship business, and it's hard to start a relationship when you interrupt somebody with a cold call or a cold email. This doesn't go very far, right? Cold outreach generally is a low response rate kind of thing, like 1% or less of the cold outreach you do is going to get response. So don't do that. One strategy I've used and some of my members have used is simply using LinkedIn events, other people's events, to get in front of high intent leads. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you do marketing for manufacturers. Go onto LinkedIn and in the search bar, search for lead generation for manufacturers. Put that in the search bar, hit go, and then you'll see all the little filters that pop up. Click on events, and it will show you all the events related to that topic. That topic is something that you do, but it's also events related to that topic. Find the events that have 15 or 20 attendees or more, probably US based if that's where you're at, and register for it. As soon as you register for it, it shows you all of the other registries for that event. My guess is that some of those people are your ICP. They're there to learn about lead gen for manufacturing. Happens to be what you do too. So now you've got a list of potentials. Direct contact with those potentials. Don't pitch them. Don't sell them. Simply show up to the event. See who else shows up to the event. See who is engaging in the event. Make a note of those people. And then after the event, just say, hey, Jake, I saw that you and I were both on the lead gen for manufacturers. I really enjoyed what the host said about such and such. What was your big takeaway? See if they respond. If they do, they've already looked at your profile. They already know you do marketing for manufacturers, and they're going to engage with you. I had a new member in the Launchpad do this. He'd been burning through a bunch of leads and not getting anywhere. He did this once, and he got a one-on-one with a CEO. So that's one way to get directly in front of one of your ideal clients without bothering them, without cold pitching them.
Great advice. So, Dean, thank you so much for spending time with our audience today, and we're so appreciative for everything. Dean, do me a favor. For people who are on here who may not know how to get in contact with you, would you just share the best way to reach out and get your voice? I know you shared it on the slide before, but just give it to us one more time.
Yeah, I'll drop it in the chat if that's helpful for people to see.
Yep, that would be great.
And I would imagine that, we're all on LinkedIn, right? Find me on LinkedIn, guys. Just message me on LinkedIn. It's the easiest way to get to me. Email me directly, that's fine. But LinkedIn's just simple. Just hit me up there. I'm happy to chat.
Fantastic. And for everyone, please remember this was sponsored by Orchestraight, the only AI that does end-to-end business development using psychology and neurolinguistic programming. And the stuff Dean sends you can sync well with Orchestraight and helping you create your ICP, value proposition, and elevator pitches. So, Dean, thank you for your time today. Thank everyone in attendance for taking time out of your day. And we'll see everyone next time.